Alright, hi guys, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Anuj, and as you can see, there's no Mancho. It's a new year, and unfortunately, it's just me now that will have to answer all your questions. So, wish you guys a great 2021. I know 2020 has been an extremely tough year for almost everyone out there. However, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Things are going to get better. Obviously, we've seen a whole lot of things changing across the world. And of course in India as well. Now coming to POCO, of course, POCO, we are looking at an incredible year coming ahead of us. I'm genuinely excited about 2021. We will have a lot to share as the year goes by, but we also do these Q&As, right? So ask me anything means you can ask me pretty much anything, and I will choose what I can tell you. And again, we got some incredible responses in terms of questions. I've got close to about 600 questions. And unfortunately, if I start kind of answering all these questions, we will be out of our data cap for the day. So what I've done is I've chosen about 10 questions that we're going to read through, and I will try and answer a few. There are some things which I cannot talk about, but let's see which one that would be. Considering nobody else is there, I'll just take off my mask, I guess. Okay, so here we go. So the first question, and this is from Aniruddha, Uday, Chandra, a whole lot of people. What are your plans for launching new phones with Dimensity chipsets in 2021? Or we can expect any new smartphone series or a few accessories this year from POCO? So this is an interesting question. Dimensity chipsets essentially mean that you're also going into 5G, right? Now, we've obviously worked with MediaTek. We have a Helio G80 based POCO M2. We've got G35 on the POCO C3. These are incredible devices. In fact, I think recently we just made an announcement on M2. So obviously we are working with Qualcomm, we are working with MediaTek. They are absolutely incredible partners to work with. Are we looking at Dimensity chipsets? Now that actually depends on how the entire 5G rollout happens. Last year, towards the end of the last year, there were some interesting announcements that came in, especially at I think the Mobile World Congress equivalent of India. I don't know what that was called. Based on that, we could probably see something, but again, I would want probably a little more clarity from our network partners before we start putting 5G phones together. So the problem is that 5G hardware, 5G modem, 5G testing, 5G antennas all will add a bit of a cost to your devices. Yes, I mean, in some ways, if the network is there, that definitely makes a lot of difference. But if the network is not there, or if it's not coming anytime soon, then it does not really make too much sense. So we'll obviously be on the lookout. We are talking to people regularly. So the basic answer, or the short answer is, it depends on the 5G networks and the entire rollout plan that we see from the networks. Okay, second question is POCO Launcher animations, ? Gesture support ? Okay, this is quite cryptic. This is coming in again from a whole bunch of people. Yes, so if you guys have been following, we started doing these Saturday Connects. These are smaller fan meets for each product. So we've already done X3, we've done M2 Pro, we have to do M2. We've been taking these questions, and this is a smaller group that's selected of people who are using that device, and we take a little more intimate feedback there. So if you guys have any specific feedback, do kind of sign up for the Saturday fan meets. That said, in the groups that we've discussed, there were certain feedbacks and certain examples that people had shown on what they wanted fixed or what they thought was a problem on the POCO Launcher. So our team is kind of currently working on all of those updates. I think most of the people are back from the New Year leave. We will have an update on that soon. So yeah, just wait around for that one. Okay, the next question or the questions are essentially around the Android 11 update timelines. Now this is from, I think, about at least about 60 or 70 questions that I saw here per mera update kab aayega. So well, one thing is there that you are getting updates, and incidentally the next phone that we are currently testing for the Android 11 update is the X2. While obviously X2 is almost now a year old, so X2, M2 Pro, M2 is the sequence that you will look at for getting the Android 11 update, and that should be happening within the next few weeks. Maybe by the time we get to M2, it would be a month or two out, but you are definitely looking at that. The other thing with updates, and especially with software updates, is these are very tricky, right? So when you're launching a phone in the beginning, it's a very controlled environment. On your phone, there's nothing else. But when you're sending an update, you might have downloaded 50, 60 different apps. I might have a completely different set of apps and different data being used. So we have to test how does this update work with all of those conditions, right? Obviously we can't run 1 crore different simulations, but we have to keep all of those in check. Otherwise, a small update can actually start giving you random problems or soft reboots and things like that, which we don't want to kind of rush. So that's why sometimes it takes a little more time to test and then roll out an update rather than just putting it out, right? It's not as easy as putting an initial software out. There are a lot of things from different apps that now start coming into play. So have a little more patience, but the update is definitely coming. The next question is, does POCO plan on releasing accessories like TWS anytime soon? This is coming in from about 3 or 4 people, Ritesh, Matthew, Manoj, and a few others. The answer is yes and no. So yes, the pop buds are still being worked on. We've gone through, I think last year itself we went through 2 different versions that we were testing. Right now we are testing the 3rd variant, and when I'm saying variant, it's basically changing drivers, changing the entire shape of the TWS, looking at the sound signature, how well the fit is, especially with Indian ears. How does that play in? We also need to kind of factor in heat, cold. Again, we know, right? For example, in Bangalore right now the temperature is about 22 degrees, but it's really cold in the north, and probably by the time you get to the coast it becomes really hot and humid. So we need to test for all of those things. So these are still work in progress. So that's why I said no to anytime soon. This will take a little more time. Once we decide on the product that we want, and if we like the sound signature and everything else, then it goes into the certification part of it. And talking about certification, obviously I think people like Mukul would be keeping a close watch on that, so you'll probably hear from him. The next question, when is POCO M3 Pro coming? Please sell an official edge-to-edge matte tempered glass for every phone. It's really hard finding a reliable one in online and offline stores for the POCO X3. Okay, so there are 2 questions actually. Accessories for X3, and when is POCO M3 Pro coming? So for the POCO M3 Pro, I can't disclose anything right now. Frankly, it's not completely locked in yet. We're looking at a couple of external variables to decide on the POCO M3 Pro. About the tempered glass for POCO X3, now this becomes a little tricky because we don't sell anything from POCO.in yet. That means we are dependent on our partners to sell, which basically means that we will have to work with someone and then get them listed on a Flipkart. So it's a longer process. What I can do is I can definitely have a word with Flipkart and see if they've got something which is of good quality that we can recommend for all of you guys. If there isn't, then I definitely know that Flipkart has pretty good partners in this side, and they could probably help on this one. So we'll probably put that update out. This is one question which I thought was pretty interesting. Akash is asking, what are your thoughts on custom ROMs? That's it. So custom ROMs, I think, are absolutely important, especially in the Android side. I mean, obviously you can't have custom ROMs for iOS. And there are two parts where it becomes really important. One is sometimes to get the product or get a phone exactly to your liking. See, when a manufacturer or a brand is making a product, a phone, you're looking at what will work for millions of people across the world. But when it goes to custom ROMs, because it's custom, you can choose what aspects you like. Obviously, that's one part of it. But the second part, which I used to really like, my first Android device, I think over the 2 years or 2.5 years I used the first phone. Now this is back in 2010, the first Android phone that I got. I must have flashed it at least 100 times. And that gave me a lot of learning on how the Android system works, which later on helped me with my job as well. So it's always good learning as well. Even if you're not flashing, it's always good to look at those forums, see what's coming in, whether people are kind of tweaking the kernels, or how people are kind of cleaning up the base Android, and what are the tweaks that are coming in is always a good learning. You should definitely kind of check that out. Next question is, can we add Google Feed in POCO Launcher? I want to use both at the same time. I like POCO Launcher and Google Feed, and I don't want to miss any of those. Well, yes, you can. So this is something that we had done sometime in the second half of last year, where on POCO Launcher you could choose your -1 screen to be a Google Feed one. Now, frankly, I also like my Google Feed. It gives me all the news that I like. It's mostly tailor-made. For some reason, in the last 3 weeks, I've been seeing celebrities in Maldives for some reason. I don't know why that happens. But the Google Feed option is there for you. Okay. This is an interesting question from Ganesh. Have you ever met Lei Jun? I'm assuming you meaning Lei Jun as the CEO of Xiaomi Group. Well, yes, I have. It was a quite interesting meeting, and I think the first time I met him was back in 2018, and that meeting was at 10 or 10:30 at night. And even at that point, I think there was a lot of learning that, even in the first meeting that I could get in terms of how he was looking at the larger play. So yeah, quite interesting. Of course, a very successful businessman. The next one is, this is, I think, a common question. I think probably about 150 questions or so would have been there. What is the meaning of thanks for F2 in that video? And the second question, I guess I will probably put that in, is we've read some places where POCO F2 is coming with Snapdragon 732G. Is that actually happening? Okay, so about F2 and what is in F2. So thanks for F2 essentially was, it's a video game reference for F. So when you press F for respect, it was just a wink from the social team that we've got, where they said, obviously thanks for all the love squared. POCO F2 with Snapdragon 732G. Maybe let's talk about this a bit more next week. Let's see. Okay, moving on to the next set of questions, and he's written about 2 or 3 questions. There are still no accessories, covers, chargers, headphones for POCO devices for purchase. Yes, unfortunately, we do not have official accessories yet, but we're definitely working towards that. But like I said, let me also work closely with Flipkart to see how we can get those out. While there's no need to get into the charging race, a certain brand also has a 65-watt charger. Can we see something like this in the future for POCO? if we think that the charging tech is safe enough and it's having no impact on the battery life, right? So battery life is not just the battery backup, but how many times your battery can fully charge and discharge. On C3 we had introduced something called Better Battery 2.0, where a normal battery you can effectively charge and recharge about 700 times before it starts losing how much charge it can hold. With Better Battery 2.0, we took it up to almost 1,000 times. By moving to a fast charger, and I think we've spoken about this in the past as well, there's a particular physics angle that comes into play where you're pushing that chemical reaction too fast. So I would probably say that only if with our environmental conditions and with the charging tech, if it is safe. Another thing that I would probably want you to kind of focus on when it comes to charging technology is power delivery, or PD. Maybe we'll talk a bit more about that a little later, but I think that's a bit more interesting. Consumers are expecting a mid-range phone around 20K with AMOLED panel. Can we see something in the future? Like I've said in the past as well, I am not going after a particular technology just for the sake of it. I would always use what actually works better, right? I can sell you a sub-optimal AMOLED display just to get the spec sheet call out, but if it does not have the right brightness, if it does not have the right angles, viewing angles, if it doesn't have the good colors, then it's just a spec sheet paper tiger, and I don't really want to create those. And with that, I think probably the last question: how can I join POCO India? Now, we've had this question come in a lot of times in the last few weeks as well. I think the last discussion that we were having when Mancho was here, we had this question come up again. So yes, we are hiring. We are hiring for multiple positions, but the first position that I'm looking for is someone who will help us with social media marketing. Now, obviously, we are a social media company, or social media first company, so we're looking for some interesting people there. But if you want to join POCO, it's not going to be as easy or maybe as boring as send us your CV. I think we're going to have some fun when we are recruiting this, and maybe next week or so we will start a social media contest to find who's going to be our next social media manager. So watch out for that one. That'll be a lot of fun. That said, I think have a good weekend, and look forward to Monday, because on Monday we've also got some more good news coming from POCO side. So that's all. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys soon.